It's Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We showed that first part of the disastrous committee meeting where Randy Boissonnault blew off all the questions like it was a big joke. It's not a big joke. When he's in jail, eventually Randy Boissonnault is probably going to be in jail. I follow this stuff, guys, and I think that he's going to be one of the first ones under the bus. Anyhow, he kept mentioning this partner, Steven Anderson. Let's take a look at what happens when Steven Anderson comes to committee. It's not great. We're going to do the intro, and then we're going to jump right into the show. Let's take a look. Politics.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, everyone, quiet down. There's a bulletin on TV.
And now for this news flash.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
So you want to vote for a pretty boy Canadian named Justin. What could possibly go wrong?
When I'm Prime Minister, I will keep my promises.
When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No.
We see proof that the Conservatives simply don't understand that low-income families don't benefit from tax breaks because they don't pay taxes.
Mr. Speaker, the leader opposite is showing us exactly what shameful, spineless leadership looks like. If anyone feels that they were impacted by my actions, I completely apologize. It's not my intention to hurt anyone.
Wiggle and squirm as you might, it is really hard to put lipstick on a pig.
And I dressed up in an Aladdin costume and put makeup on. I shouldn't have done that.
WTF.
Here, here.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
I made a mistake. And I'm sincerely sorry.
I think our leader, Trudeau, I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word.
Oh, yeah.
Of Interest Act. I've explained to the witnesses about the earpieces. Just a reminder to all members, make sure that your earpieces are in the appropriate places on the table so that we're not causing damage to the interpreter. I want to thank you all for your cooperation on that. Before we begin, I'm going to go ahead, Mr. Brock. Go ahead on a point of order.
Thank you, Chair. Given the nature of the anticipated evidence and the controversy surrounding it, I will be requesting that both witnesses be sworn or affirmed to tell the truth.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brock. So you're moving a motion to have the witnesses swear an oath or affirm. Okay, so any objection to that, Mr. Nackby? Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I will object to this. We've had this conversation before in other committees with Mr. Brock on the other side asking for something similar, and I've always made the point that that's not the practice. In parliamentary committees, it is assumed that all witnesses are going to be telling the truth. This is not required by the standing orders either, and I think it sets a dangerous precedent, and I think it really undermines the witnesses in terms of that they somehow will not be sharing the truth if they are not sworn and affirmed. And so I request that this motion be denied. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification's sake, to Mr. Brock, you did move this on a point of order, so I'm gonna. You can't move it on a point of order. I've been notified by the clerk on that. I see that we have no consensus on this. I do see Mr. Fisher's hand. I had Mr. Green, then Mr. Villemure on this. So effectively, the point of order and movement of the motion, there's no discussion to be had at this point because it was moved on a point of order. So I am going to not allow this to happen. I don't see any further discussion on this. I see Mr. Villemure's hand is down. Mr. Fisher, do you have... Okay.
I was going to say exactly what you said, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So So we're going to go to our witnesses now. Mr. Anderson, I want to welcome you to the committee, as well as Kirsten Poon, who is here by video conference.
Wait until you see
as
these witnesses.
as individuals.
This is almost laughable.
Ms. Poon, you have
It's
up to
not
5
really
minutes
funny,
to address
but
the committee. Go ahead, please.
Laughable, yeah, maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me today. I would like to take this opportunity to set the record straight. There's been considerable conjecture and innuendo that's been in the media over the past couple of months. I understand why that is the case, but I'm here to provide you the facts, and I'm confident that a fair reading of those facts will confirm that the public conjecture is misplaced. I've known the Honorable Randy Boissonnault since 2009, and I count him as a close friend. Over the past 15 years, we have occasionally worked together. We did so before he was elected to public office. After the 2019 election, when Mr. Boissonnault, we collaborated on projects in 2020 and 2021. One of our clients included the Edmonton International Airport, whom I've acted for since 2018, before they'd even met Minister Boissonnault. Both Xenex and later Navis Group registered as lobbyists in compliance with the requirements of the Federal Lobbying Act and the Lobbyist Code of Conduct. Minister Boissonnault was a shareholder of Xenex, but it's important for this committee to understand that he was not involved in its lobbying activities. He did not help me engage or set up meetings with the federal government during his time as a private citizen, in compliance with his cooling off period. The core of Xenex and the core of Navis Group is strategy consulting. In the fall of 2021, Minister Boissonnault was re-elected to public office. At this time, Xenex ceased its day-to-day business operations. To address his compliance obligations under the Conflict of Interest Act, Mr. Boissonnault fully disclosed the Xenex operations, and he appointed me as the director of Xenex to manage his business. This arrangement and my own lobbying activities have been regularly and thoroughly disclosed to the Ethics Commissioner. Since the fall of 2021, Xenex has been inactive and merely holds investments. Xenex has not lobbied the federal government. My responsibility as a director is limited to annual returns and tax filings. I continued my work with the Edmonton International Airport. Here again, I would note that my work with the airport predates the engagement of Xenex and Minister Boissonnault. This airport work is conducted through my own company, Navis Group. Minister Boissonnault has no financial interest in Navis Group and has not done anything to advance the work of Navis Group. He has made no introductions and never intervened on our behalf or on behalf of our clients. The media speculation has focused on two issues, and I want to speak to them here. First, in March and June 2022, I took meetings with the staff in Minister Freeland's office. During this time, Minister Boissonnault served as Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance. The staff I met with reported to Minister Freeland and did not report to Minister Boissonnault in any way whatsoever. To use the language of the Lobbyist Code of Conduct, these staff would have had no sense of obligation to me, even had they been aware of my connection to Minister Boissonnault. And to be clear, I in no way told staff about this connection or otherwise used my connection to Minister Boissonnault to advance the file. I reported these meetings in the Registry of Lobbyists at the time, and I'm confident a fair review of the facts will conclude that I've complied with all of my obligations under the Lobbying Act. Second, Minister Boissonnault has made public disclosures about outstanding business revenues from my company Navis to his company Xenex. To be clear, the payments received by Xenex from Navis since Minister Boissonnault's re-election are related to contracts received while Minister Boissonnault was a private citizen, before his re-election. He has no economic interest in, has not been involved in, and has not received payments for any contracts following his re-election. The suggestion or innuendo that Minister Boissonnault somehow had an economic interest in the outcome of the work that was before the government while being a minister of that government is entirely without merit and factually incorrect. The amount owing to Xenex was an obligation entirely unconnected to the outcome of the engagement. No intervention that Minister Boissonnault made would have affected the amount he received. I'm proud of the business I've built. My success is due to my own hard work. The conjecture that Minister Boissonnault is the reason for any success I've had is frankly false and disheartening. I've never lobbied Minister Boissonnault, his staff, or his associates, and he has not helped me in any of these matters. I take my compliance seriously, as does the minister, and I'm proud of the work that I've done. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poon. Mr. Anderson, up to 5 minutes to address the committee. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start by saying how daunting and difficult it is to have one's personal and professional reputation smeared and diminished by those in position of power and authority with little to no recourse for a response. While I deeply respect and appreciate the role of parliamentarians, and especially this parliamentary committee plays in holding governments to account and protect our democratic values, much of what has gone on in relation to this file has felt far more political, personal, and targeted, other than noble goals. Reputation takes a lifetime to build and can be destroyed in seconds, certainly by people in this room. I will be the first to admit that not all of my business ventures since 2006 have worked out, but as a handful of you know, that's the nature of being an entrepreneur. What's been 100% consistent across every business is that every business I've been part of is that we've been ethical, legal, and completely above board. I resent and will take every option at my disposal to defend myself accordingly. This great country that we call home is divided and made up on a solid foundation that we are all created equally, and we all are afforded the protections of being a Canadian. We may come from different political backgrounds, whether you live in a Conservative riding, Liberal, NDP, or Bloc. The one thing is paramount is that Canadians of all walks of life, even in a Liberal riding, they go to church, and yes, we have gay and transgender friends that live in a Conservative one, such as me in Alberta. That doesn't make any of us more powerful or inferior to one another, but that we are all treated equally, and I have a fundamental belief in equality and equality for all. As hard as this may seem to be accepted to certain members of the committee, we have to call this for what it is. It appears from the beginning of these proceedings that the only fault that you are looking for is to blame a successful business person who has spent their life protecting and defending the disadvantages of visible minorities, as well as people of different backgrounds. As many of you are aware, I have not and will and have never communicated with any parliamentarian in relation to business. This is highly unethical and was not the case. The Ethics Commissioner has ruled on this in the past few weeks. Canada has been a champion on the world stage, from open business to free enterprise to equal protections for all people, regardless of your background. I resent any connection to the opposite. When it comes to global health imports, a company I founded with Minister BOISSONNAULT during a time when he was neither in Cabinet nor in the House of Commons, this was absolutely been the case. I have been glad to see both the Ethics Commissioner has reinforced those points. To the members, let me reinforce the following. The company was founded by us to provide clients, including government, like the City of Edmonton, with access to personal protective equipment at a time when it was both critical and challenging. Mr. BOISSONNAULT has not had anything to do with the business since he was re-elected to the House of Commons in 2001. Given the challenges we faced during COVID-19, we were introduced to a variety of clients both in healthcare, Canada, the US, and overseas. The ongoing litigation in the state of California, which has been recently publicized, while complicated and ties to GHI, has nothing to do with Mr. BOISSONNAULT. Mr. BOISSONNAULT and I have been in touch a grand total of 6 times since he was re-elected, each time about birthday wishes or some trivial personal matter. Finally, with regards to the infamous text message featured by a global news story, The Other Randy, I hope the members of the committee can understand that this was an unfortunate autocorrect suggesting it was Randy. On a final point, I would like to say that I am happy to share those messages and the correct name of the individual in the text with the committee members in camera only. I ask this because after the incredible turmoil I have endured as a result of the story, the person in question is in a personal situation where media exposure could even cause more serious effect to their lives and their family around them. I'm sure the members understand. I have lost not only family as well as a long-term relationship due to what has come out. With that, I am happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. We're now going to move to the first round of questioning, 6-minute rounds, and we're going to start with Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett, go ahead, please.
Mr. Anderson, who's Randy?
As I said in my opening remarks, I would be delighted to share that information with you in camera only, simply based on the turmoil that I have gone through in my personal life.
Sir, that's not how this works. You're obligated to provide fulsome answers to the committee. I'm going to ask you again, who's Randy?
Randy, as I said in my opening statement, was an autocorrect.
Okay. Who are Shauna and Felix at Global Health Imports?
Shauna Parker was in our shipping department. Felix was the account manager for the Quebec government.
In 2022, who were the partners at GHI?
In September, Federal Corporate Registries in September of 2021 was registered as me, provincially registered. It was both myself and Minister Boissonault.
According to text messages we have from you from September 6, 2022, Randy and Felix were to have a partner vote on a wire transfer to your business. It says, quote, "So we are game tomorrow," or "What do we expect will be the delay tomorrow? I am sending email to Randy and Felix right now, but I know if I send this and we miss tomorrow, it will be done. They will have a partner vote on this." End quote. A partner vote on a multi-million-dollar deal. That Randy is not an autocorrect. That's Randy Boissonault, correct?
No. Mr. Chair, I respect the question. However, Global Health, we had two companies, Global Health Imports and Global Healthcare Solutions.
Okay, so how many Randys at GHI have ever participated in partner votes?
Global Health Imports up until September of 2021 was Mr. Boissonault.
And then you replaced him with another Randy?
As I've told you, it was an autocorrect for another company, and I would certainly share that with you if you would like to go in camera.
Not Global Health Imports?
If you're referring to an ongoing text message that was sent by Global News from the Gowie Group, which is where I'm assuming this is where this is going, the Gowie Group had a contract in place with Global Health Imports and Global Healthcare Solutions.
So another text message from you says, "Sorry, I'm very confused. I updated Randy, Shauna, Felix, and our CFO. Yikes. OMG, this lady has me crazy." End quote. Was that an autocorrect, or was that Randy Boissonault?
Randy Boissonault was never involved in the operating business of Global Health Imports after September of 2021.
So we've got Randy, Shauna, and Felix, but it's a partner call, but you maintain that it's not Randy Boissonault.
Mr. Chair, I respectfully say that...
Please don't interrupt, sir. How many people work for Global Health Imports?
Really
What's the total staff complement?
121.
Please don't interrupt.
How many are named Randy?
Pretty funny.
Global Health Imports, there was one up until September 2021, Randy Boissonault.
Mr. Henderson, what happened to the $500,000 that was paid to GHI by Gowie Group?
That is an ongoing litigation. There was a decision, and it has been publicized by the courts as of last.
Okay, I stopped the clock. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
I say this for respect of the witness. It might be helpful, Mr. Chair, if you apprise the witness of what his privileges are in this committee in terms of what can and can't be used against him, so that he can answer the committee in a full way without having to kind of rely on the civil litigation. But if it's my understanding through you, sir, to the clerk or whomever wants to clarify, that he also assumes privilege when testifying here, therefore anything that is said here cannot, as I understand, legally be used against him in a civil proceeding. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Green, I was actually going to intervene shortly on this and remind Mr. Anderson that he is in front of a parliamentary committee, that the full privileges are applied to him as they are to members with respect to parliamentary privilege, and that Mr. Anderson does have an obligation to answer, to the best of his ability, the questions that are being asked by committee members. And so, sir, I'm going to ask that you respect as equally the privileges of members to ask these committees and your obligation to answer them, with an understanding that you are protected by parliamentary privilege. So I am going to continue the clock, and I want to thank you, Mr. Green, for that intervention. Mr. Barrett, you have 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Go ahead, please.
Did Randy Boissonnault receive any benefit from the $500,000 payment from Gowie Group to your company?
Gowie Group contract, Mr. Chairman, was entered into in September of 2022. As we've reiterated, Mr. Boissonnault was not involved with the company after September of 2021.
In 2022, where was GHI's office? It was in Edmonton, is that correct?
We had 2 offices.
And where were they?
Edmonton and Brossard, Quebec.
So texts from you on September 8th, 2022 say, sorry to be an annoyance, I have them all on me. Everyone is in the office and asking, everyone being Randy, Shauna, and Felix, is that right? Who is everyone that was on you in respect to that text message?
In September of 2022, we had a vandalism which the Edmonton City Police were involved with at 3:42 in the morning, and there was a break and enter and an arson in our facility.
So I just need to know, who was everyone? Is it Randy, Shauna, and Felix?
No, it was all employees that worked in the building.
Okay. The text goes on to say, I have Felix walking in and Shauna every 15 minutes. And that's in this text message. Was Randy there in Edmonton?
No.
The text continues and says, calling Randy now to advise. Randy was he the principal? Is that why Randy needed to be made aware?
You're referring to a text message, Mr. Chairman, for 2022. Randy Boissonnault, I have not spoken to in 2022.
Okay.
Nor on text message, which he supplied his text messages to the Ethics Commissioner, which is ruled we haven't spoken.
So let's put it this way. September 6th, 2022, where you say you need to update Randy on a wire transfer because the West Coast is closing in 7 minutes and Randy is in the Vancouver office. Do you know what Randy was in Vancouver on September 6, 2022? Well, it was Liberal Cabinet Minister Randy Boissonnault in Vancouver at a cabinet retreat. So you say it's an autocorrect. That's quite the autocorrect, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I resent the fact that the member is making an accusation against me.
I'm not making an accusation. I'm showing you and reading your text.
Mr. Cooper, if you're allowed to ask a question, I should be able to answer.
Just do so honestly.
We're past the time, Mr. Barrett. Thank you. We're going to go to Mr. Fisher, who's online. Mr. Fisher, you have 6 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank our witnesses for being present today. And just before I begin my questions to Ms. Poon, I want to share just a few thoughts on what brought us here today. Twice now, Conservative members have run ramshod over a reasonable process by calling committee meetings and calling witnesses, only to find out after the passage of those motions that the Ethics Commissioner has looked into the issue and found no issue. We've seen it reported in several media outlets. The Ethics Commissioner has written to Minister Boissonnault to let him know they reviewed the information twice. We've seen this, and here we are. And this is the second time that the Commissioner has looked into this innuendo, found that there was no cause for concern. It's also the second time the Conservatives have ignored the response
Fisher,
from the Ethics Commissioner. Yes, sir.
I've stopped your clock.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to remind you that a motion was passed by the committee.
I understand.
In order to have this meeting, and a majority of the members voted to have this meeting. It wasn't the Conservatives, the NDP, the Bloc, or the Liberals, nor was it I that called this meeting. We are acting at the will of the committee. So I just want to remind you of that, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you,
5 minutes
Mr.
and 10
Chair.
seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will say that when we had those conversations on those, we had all said on our side of the bench that we have an ethics commissioner and that we provide this information to him, let him do his work and rule on this on his own time frame and then come back and talk about it if there's an issue. We didn't decide to do that. So here we are today. Again, after the second time the ethics commissioner has said there's nothing to see here, we are still here. Again, on our side, Mr. Chair, we'll do our best to stick to the facts. Ms. Poon, we've heard a great deal, as you put it, of innuendo and conjecture, and I just wanted to add maybe even pure exaggeration from some members in this committee in the past few months. I'd like to take an opportunity just to go over some if you could, of the basic facts. Can you confirm you have never lobbied Minister Boissonnault?
Thank you for the opportunity to set the record straight. I have never lobbied Minister Boissonnault or his staff.
Thank you. Can you confirm that Minister Boissonnault has never set up a meeting with federal officials or staff in other ministers' offices on your behalf?
Minister Boissonnault has never helped me set up any meetings with any officials in any offices.
Can you confirm that the political staff that you met with at Finance Canada reported to Minister Freeland, not to Minister Boissonnault?
All the staff I met with reported to Minister Freeland. They in no way reported to Minister Boissonnault in any way whatsoever.
Thank you. Can you confirm again that you did not in any way leverage your relationship with the minister to get those meetings?
I have never leveraged my relationship or connection to Minister Boissonnault to set up meetings.
And as far as you know, to your knowledge, did Mr. Boissonnault work fully with the Ethics Commissioner to arrange his business affairs after re-election, as the Ethics Commissioner has said?
Yes. I would say that the minister regularly and thoroughly reports all his activities to the Ethics Commissioner, and he does this every year. He also did, from the very beginning, let the Ethics Commissioner know that I was registered as a lobbyist.
Can you confirm that your professional relationship with EIA predated their relationship with Minister Boissonnault?
Yes. I started working with the airport in 2018, which predates any relationship or work that the minister has done with the airport.
As has been noted, during the time you were representing Edmonton International Airport, they received several grants from the federal government. Can you confirm that none of these grants came from departments that Minister Boissonnault was in charge of?
The minister has never been part of the approval of any grants awarded to the Edmonton International Airport. No departments reporting to Minister Boissonnault have been involved with any of the grants related to the airport, and he nor his staff have ever been in any of the approval processes related to the airport.
Can you confirm that during the time you worked together between 2019 and 2021, the Minister Boissonnault did not participate in any lobbying activity? The minister never sat in on or arranged meetings with government officials at all during that period?
The minister has never been involved in any lobbying activity and has never sat in on any meetings with officials.
And can you confirm that you hadn't met Mr. Anderson before today and that you have no insight into the operations of the company Global Health Imports?
Yeah, I've never met Mr. Anderson or spoken to Mr. Anderson. I have no insight into any of the operations of Global Health Imports.
Ms. Poon, some members of this committee have expressed concern about Minister Boissonnault's use of the legal name of your company in his ethics disclosure versus the trade name Navis Group. Can you talk a little bit about that? I understand you changed the name of your company to Navis after Minister Boissonnault's re-election. Can you give us a down low on the timeline there?
Yes, and actually, this is an important question and one that I would like to clarify. When Minister Boissonnault and I worked together when he was a private citizen, I only used the numbered company as my legal name. And my understanding is when he makes his disclosures that he actually is supposed to register the legal name. I did not register the trade name until November 2021, which is after his re-election. I did not tell the minister that I registered that as my trade name because I did not feel like that was information relevant to him. I registered the trade name to meet my requirements as a consultant lobbyist. So that is also something I would certainly not tell him as it related to my lobbying activity. I don't think the minister actually knew about the trade name until a couple months ago, but my understanding from the beginning was that he was required to disclose the legal name of my company, which is my numbered company name.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. Much has been made about the fact that you were able to get meetings with officials. However, a significant reason for those meetings is that you were representing EIA. Is that true?
Yes.
Quick response.
The airport has its own existing relationships.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. We're out of time, Mr. Fisher. La prochaine intervention est pour...
Next up, we have Mr. Villemure. And I am just going to remind all of our witnesses to put on their earpieces so that you can listen to the interpretation. Mr. Villemure, you have 6 minutes. Go ahead, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the introduction and for the heads up concerning interpretation. So for the benefit of the witnesses, the Ethics Committee is responsible for looking into some actions of elected officials. Of course, this is not a tribunal, and you're not accused of anything. To the contrary, we're just trying to obtain information following a motion adopted by the committee, and we're not replacing the ethics commissioner either. So these are different elements. Mr. Anderson, what's your relationship with Minister Randy Boissonnault?
Minister Boissonnault and I had met in 2019. Was our first time meeting. We started a business together. It was during COVID-19. We haven't had any interaction since. I think a handful of times, 6 or 7 times, we've communicated. We haven't met in person since he was elected back to office.
Merci beaucoup. Mais vous connaissez M. Boissonnault de comment vous étiez des amis?
Thank you very much. But did you know Mr. Boissonnault as a friend? Did you have common friends? Were you part of the same business circle?
I wouldn't classify Mr. Boissonnault as a friend. No, we actually met on an airplane from Montreal flying back to Edmonton.
D'accord, merci. Écoutez, vous êtes comme nous au courant que le comité.
Okay, thank you. Are you aware of the fact that the Ethics Commissioner chose not to pursue the matter further when it comes to the allegations of conflict of interest? And what do you think about the decision of the Commissioner?
I support the decision. I am aware now, yes, since it has come out in the news cycle. I completely agree for the simple reason that we didn't have any communication, and we haven't communicated in regards to business relationships since the end of 2021, which was September, prior to the election.
And in your opinion, why are you here today?
I think I'm here today simply because of a legal litigation suit, a civil litigation suit that is happening in the province of Alberta with a customer that we had relations with that is not going. It's been in a legal dispute since 2022, and it's been before the courts and with legal counsel, and they have shared their side of the story to a news reporter at Global.
D'accord, mais.
Okay, but the questions that that have been asked to you so far have been focused on your relationship with Minister Boissonnault rather than the ongoing litigation. Do you think that's the relationship that's causing problem when it comes to the litigation?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Vous mentionnez que
So you're saying that the reason you are here is because there is a court case in California dating back to 2022, but the questions you have received so far have been focused on your relationship with Minister Boissonnault. So are we here for the litigation or for some other reason?
I apologize, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. I believe we're here simply because of a business relationship that I had with Mr. Boissonnault from 2020 until 2021. The federal filings showed that he was removed from the organization. However, the legal counsel in Alberta didn't remove him from the provincial registries. And I believe that we're here simply because they believe this committee, certain members of the committee believe that he was involved with Global Health Imports when he has had no operational role and no communication in regards to the company since that time.
In your opinion, are you here for political reasons this morning?
Again, I'm not a politician. However, I would answer yes. In my opinion, this has been that.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Poon, what's your relationship with Minister Boissonnault?
Minister Boissonnault and I have been friends since 2009.
Merci pour la brièveté.
Thank you for the briefness of your answer. So I will be asking the same questions. The Ethics Commissioner chose to look at the facts, and they did not see any evidence that would allow them to start an investigation. What do you think about that decision?
Of your answer.
I read in the media reports that the Ethics Commissioner reviewed his his business activities and expressed no concern with his compliance with the Act and will not pursue any further.
D'accord. Et la même question que j'ai posée à M. Anderson.
Okay, another question that I was asking to Mr. Anderson. If the Ethics Commissioner did not find the basis for an investigation, why are you here today?
I'm here as a private citizen, and I'm happy to answer questions and to assist the committee. Again, I take my obligations very seriously. The minister also takes his obligations very seriously. And, you know, I've been very careful to meet all of my compliance obligations.
Croyez-vous que votre présence ici...
Do you believe that the political aspect of the matter is the reason why you're here?
I would
go ahead, Ms.
I would
Boone.
say I mean, I'm a private citizen. Again, I take my compliance obligations seriously, and the minister did as well. You know, in terms of the involvement, I would just like to confirm that, you know, him and I followed the rules.
Thank
and we've worked hard.
Thank you, Ms. Poon. Merci, Monsieur Villemure. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Villemure.
Mr. Anderson, my questions will be for you this round. I'm going to put them in a rather rapid-fire way. I may interject to take back the time. I'm not trying to be rude, but I would respect if you just cut your answer short and allow me to ask the next question. Take me back to the plane ride. You're on a plane with a minister or a person that used to be an MP. You sit down, you get chatting, and then from that conversation, you develop a multi-million-dollar company. No, tell me, like, after that conversation, what happens next?
It was 2019. Private citizen BOISSONNAULT was flying back from Bolivia, I believe. He was down for an election. There was an election. He was part of a coalition. I was flying back to Edmonton. I was in the import-export business for wholesale sports. I owned import and export sporting goods equipment retail. And there was COVID-19 was just starting out, and I had an import-export license, and we were talking about the needs of what parts of the world were facing, and that there was a potential that this virus could come to Canada.
Okay,
that was the initial
so I respect that, and I understand that you had some involvement with hockey sales and hockey equipment as well. Some matters that had been resolved between you and an organization. With Mr. Beausoleil, though, you had the experience in import-export. He had a past experience in government. Together, you saw this opportunity, you seized upon it, you formed a partnership. Is that correct?
Correct.
It was a 50-50 partnership?
Correct.
He was not operational.
He was operational in 2020 and 2021.
And in the structure of your organization, who reported to whom?
None. We reported to each other.
Did you report to anybody at any given time?
No.
So you were a principal, he was a principal, it was 50-50. At the height of your operations, what was the revenue?
At the height, 35 million.
So out of that, what would the compensation look like in dividends between the two owners?
I can't speak to his compensation. You would have to ask him that.
Well, I mean, respectfully, you can, because you're here as a principal officer.
I am a principal, but at the end of the day, I would never respectfully
what was
disclose
yours?
someone else's.
How about that?
220,000.
50-50, it's safe to assume his was the same?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with that being said, you're in a situation, you'll note that Mr. Beausoleil at committee actually testified that he wasn't really starting a new business, he was resuming another business that he'd had for 15 years prior, you know, which is, to my understanding, in conflict with a recent Le Devoir article that stated he was in journalism, but that's probably for another conversation. So you brought the operational expertise of import and export. So you would have
been in the export.
You would have been dealing with wire transfers and shipping and receiving and all of that stuff, correct?
Correct.
But yet in the text messages, let's set aside what the person's name is, you seem to be reporting to somebody. You seem to be needing the direction from somebody who is ultimately making decisions. Who at that time would have been making decisions in your company?
So in 2022 was solely me, was the one making decisions. However, we were working with our accountants as well as with our bankers and as well as our shipping and logistics.
I am telling you we are not allocating like this. Please reach out and see what the reason is now. You assured me this morning this was done first thing. Be available in 15 for a partner call. You were being, I think, directed, I think it's safe to say, to join a partner call. Who would have been the partner at that time, sir?
I disagree with, I agree with the context of what you're saying, but I would say that you can look at all communications, which I've offered to this committee.
Mr. Anderson, I've had an accountant before. An accountant would never, in a client business relationship, speak to me that way in a text, sir. Who was it that you were reporting to? Who was the other principal?
I was reporting to no one else.
Be available in 15 for a partner call. Do you agree that that text message is a valid text message, yes or no?
I agree what you're saying, however, you're insinuating that
I'm not
I was
insinuating, I'm
reporting to
stating
Randy
quite
Boissonnault.
frankly that the text objectively, I have no grind, I'm not, I'm here just objectively looking at this and I don't find your testimony credible, sir. And I'll tell you why. Because it says, be available in 15 minutes for a partner call. Only a partner or a principal in a dynamic in that kind of communication style could demand you to be on a call. Is that not a safe, objective statement to make?
I would say from your question, yes, but Minister Boissonnault was never involved in 2022.
Who was the other, what partners did you have after that?
In 2022, with Global Healthcare Solutions, there was 5 that we were managing within the business.
How many of them were named Randy?
There was no Randy involved with Global Healthcare Solutions.
What about the other company?
Global Health Imports, there was a Randy. Randy Boissonnault was involved till September of 2021.
Did
when he
Mr.
stepped away.
Boissonnault maintain his 50% share? Because I've heard you use very specific language. You said he was not operational in his role.
Correct.
Was he still a fiduciary on the company? Was he still receiving dividends?
No.
He didn't receive a penny after that?
After 2021, no.
Okay. So it's your testimony today that an autocorrect was the cause of all of this confusion? Is that what you're...
I am saying that, yes, I will certainly give the information and the person's name if the committee wants it in camera. It is.
I want to know, you seem to know pretty clearly where Mr. Barrett was going with his line of questioning. I would put to you that, to me, objectively, it would seem that you are validating the legitimacy of those text messages. Those are real text messages, correct?
Broken sporadically, but they are text messages to Melvina Gowie, yes.
Right.
Mr.
And
Green.
is that it? Oh, I was just getting started. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. We're going to move to our second round now, and we're going to go back to Mr. Barrett for 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Minister Randy Boissonnault's office is quoted in media reports saying that Minister Boissonnault was at a cabinet retreat in Vancouver. The Liberal cabinet retreat was in Vancouver September 6th to September 8th, 2022. Mr. Anderson, you've said that you had offices in Edmonton. You said today that you had offices in Edmonton and Quebec. But text messages from you from September 6th, 2022, where you say you need to update Randy on the wire transfer because the West Coast is closing in 7 minutes and Randy is in the Vancouver office. Do you know what Randy was in Vancouver on that date?
No, I did not know that he was in Vancouver.
Well, who was the Randy that was in Vancouver?
As I've told you, Mr. Chairman, Randy was not involved after September of 2021, and it was an autocorrect.
But I don't think I want to get into asking you what you think an autocorrect is, but I can tell you that this isn't that. This isn't that. It was Randy Boissonnault. It was Randy Boissonnault. There's only one Randy who's been involved in your company. You've said his name is Randy Boissonnault. You, sir, are the person who said Randy's name. Is it your testimony today that how many times do you say it? 9 references to Randy? Every one of those 9 is an autocorrect?
Yes. Randy Boissonnault was not involved with our operation or in any business relation after September of 2021.
Well, you certainly have said 2 different things. So were you lying then or are you lying now?
I am not lying in regard to Randy not being involved with the business after September of 2021.
I don't believe you. So we'll just get that out of the way because your story doesn't add up. So we have the reference in the text message of your 121-person company, and you talk about Shauna, Felix, and Randy. So you can tell us who Shauna is, you can tell us who Felix is, but you can't tell us who Randy is, or you won't tell us who Randy is. That's because it's Randy Boissonnault. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, no, it is not correct. And I will go on to say that I will not tell the person's name simply because Shauna Parker and Felix Papineau, after everything that has happened, they are in the same litigation that we are involved in as employees of the organization by this particular individual.
Sir, just so you're aware.
Morning to find out if that is the case.
Okay. Now, is that Randy that you're talking about, Randy Boissonnault?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't bring up Randy's name that time. You asked a question. Did I know that Randy sold his shares in the company? And I did not know that he had sold his shares from the numbered company.
Okay. So I just have to recap for you here. Your words talk about Randy in the Vancouver office. Your words, you talk about Randy on the partner call. Multiple times, 9 separate times, your words that there's only one Randy who's worked at the 121-person company. And your claim today is that it's not Randy Boissonnault.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
That's just not credible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. We're going to go to Mr. Baines now for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. Ms. Poon, can you confirm, I think you indicated that you worked together between 2019 and 2021. Minister Boissonnault did not participate in any lobbying activity. Can you confirm that?
In 2020 and 2021, Minister Boissonnault was a private citizen. He complied with his cooling off period and has never been involved in any of my lobbying activities.
And so the minister never sat in or arranged meetings with government officials at all during that period?
He has never sat in on any meetings, and he has never helped me set up or engage any meetings with any government officials.
And what about Mr. Anderson? Can you confirm that you hadn't met Mr. Anderson before today?
I have never met Mr. Anderson before today.
And you have no insight into operations of the company Global Health Imports?
No insight into any of the operations of Global Health Imports.
And just on the name use, some members have expressed concern about Minister Boissonnault's use of the legal name of your company in the ethics disclosure. I think you spoke about that versus the trade name Navis Group, and you changed the name of your company to Navis Group after the election. How about the grant process? Can you talk a little bit about the grant process? We've heard also in media reports that government's just handing out grants like willy-nilly here, but based on single meetings. Could you talk in general sense about the grant application process and how detailed and thorough it is when you're looking for applying for any grants?
Yes, happy to answer the question, and thank you, as this is very important. The grant application process is very rigorous. It requires a lot of detailed information, and it's reviewed by many eyes. All grant programs have a set of criteria that needs to be met before any of the approval, and this review and approval process takes a long time. It's not just meeting with officials and then receiving a check. There is a very arduous grant application process that needs to happen.
How long does it take?
I think it varies. I don't have a lot of experience in this area, but I think it can take months, a year, or even longer, depending on what's needed.
So for your company, who was putting the grant application forward?
The Edmonton International Airport put together their grant application.
Okay. And I'm going to move on to Mr. Anderson. Can you confirm that you've confirmed already, I believe, that Minister Boissonnault stepped down as director of GHI following his election, Can you confirm that Minister Boissonnault is not named in any outstanding lawsuits GHI may be dealing with?
That's correct.
And
I don't think your microphone was on. I don't know, Mr. Baines, whether you got that answer, but he did answer it. That's correct, just so you're aware.
Correct? Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. Okay. So on June 4th, Global News reported on a text you had a representative of a company called the Gowie Group in an exchange. And even though you made the statement to Global saying the individual named Randy mentioned in the exchange was not the minister, can you confirm again? And you've indicated that you can provide this information in maybe in camera or whatever. Can you maybe provide that in writing at some point?
Provide what in writing, sorry?
The name of the other Randy you're talking about, the individual that you're talking about, that you said that it was an autocorrect and it was not the minister, and you've indicated today that you are willing to share that in camera. Can you share that in writing to the committee?
I would share it with the committee, just like as the last member had asked about in June, you had asked me for records. I did reply back to the clerk and offered to provide the text messages and call logs. I did ask that private information about my health and with family was held in camera.
Talking about, sorry, Mr. Anderson, I'm asking about, you've indicated that you're willing to provide that information in camera. I'm just saying, would you provide the correct information, the correct name, the unauto-corrected name to the committee in writing in some capacity? You can submit that to us.
Quick response, please.
Yes.
Okay. Merci. Thank you, Mr. Baines. Monsieur Villemure, 2 minutes.
Mr. Villemure, you have 2.5 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to give my time to my colleague from the NDP.
5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you to my friend from the block. It was reported in the original reports that the other Randy was the head of logistics. There was a head of logistics. Do you recall that? You ambiguously admitted to working with another Randy, identified only as the head of logistics. Is that correct?
That is the story. That is what was
that
published.
That is the story.
Yes. That is what was published, yes.
That is the story. Is that what you said?
I was contacted by a blocked phone number. This is probably June. I'm not sure of the exact date. I was contacted by someone calling and asking me, is Randy there? I said no. They went on to say, does Randy Boissonault work at the operation? I said no, they don't. They identified as Kristen Poon, or sorry, not Kristen Poon, as Krista Hesse from Global News. I admit that I did panic when she said, is there another Randy?
So you lied?
To the reporter, I did, yes.
So I appreciate that. I actually do. Maybe it's the first truth I've heard today. I do appreciate that, and I say that because that is a far leap from an autocorrect. So you're now admitting on the record, it's important you do that, by the way, because you do have to respect the standing orders of the House of Commons when asked direct questions, that in fact there was no other Randy of logistics. Now your testimony has changed. Now your testimony is that it was an autocorrect. Is the autocorrect still listing a head of logistics, or have we determined that in fact there is no head of logistics, or that they weren't involved in that conversation?
So if you're referring to, was I talking about Randy Boissonault?
It's not what I asked. I'll ask you directly. Who's responsible for the head of logistics?
Edward.
Edward. Far cry from Randy.
Yes.
Okay. When you flip back and forth between GHI is the partnership 50-50 that you had with Mr. Boissonnault, correct?
Correct.
And the nature of that corporation, was that broken down into shares?
It was.
So when it dissolved, how did that dissolution of the corporation or dissolution of Mr. Boissonnault's shares happen?
So the company is not dissolved.
How did Mr. Boissonnault step away financially from the organization? Did you pay him out?
No.
This is a $35 million revenue company. He was making $225,000 a year. It's your testimony that he walked without any financial compensation?
No. Randy Boissonault's involvement in global health imports, to my understanding, is that his portion of his ownership was moved into a trust or
so he still owns?
Randy is not operational in the business,
but he still owns.
I did not buy him out, if that's what you're testifying.
Correct. Yeah, because you would know that there would be filings for this, right?
I didn't buy him out.
Fair enough. $35 million company, you're each making $225,000 a year. Randy steps away because he's elected. His investments are now in trust. In that trust, as the owner, is it still the case that you annually receive $250,000? Is that salary or is that dividends?
There has been no payments since 2022, since the incident that occurred in Edmonton.
Because there's been no business?
The business hasn't been operating since 2022.
What was left in the bank prior to that?
Prior to what date?
Prior to the one you just gave.
So we have been non-operational as we
Is
are
there
trying
money
to
in
restart.
a holding account somewhere pending civil litigation?
There is money in court that
Being
has been
held.
held in court pending the outcome of the litigation.
So you also haven't been paid out. It's frozen, is that correct?
That is correct.
Who are the other 5 partners at Global Health Solutions?
It was managing employees that were there.
The question is, who are the other 5 partners?
There was no other partners listed on the registry, just me.
For GHS, no other partners?
Listed on the filings, no.
So no other partners in GHS, no other partners in GHI. You have a partner call. You've only had one partner ever on the record. That was Randy Boissonault.
We had managing directors in the company that
But a director's not a partner.
owners. Agreed.
So who joins your partner call? You're not going on a call by yourself. Come on, Stephen.
No, there is 5 individuals, there is 5 individuals that would be involved in any decision deal-making that we were making.
Who are they?
One was Shauna Parker, one was Felix Papineau, one was Edward, and the last one I won't name. I simply will not name them just based on the turmoil that I have gone through that I don't want them dragged
I would
through.
put to you that your turmoil is becoming more complicated with your testimony. I would put that to you. You have the opportunity to put this to rest right now. You could have done it 3 months ago. I don't want to be here. You could have done it 3 months ago. You could have brought out the other Randy, and you could have just laid all this to rest, but here we are.
Mr. Green, you're over time.
Thank you.
Mr. Lloyd for 5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Anderson, you expect this committee to believe that you autocorrected at least 8 times. We have text message evidence that you used the term Randy at least 8 times. And you expect us to believe that you autocorrected 8 times without correcting yourself even once?
That is the truth, yes.
Now, do you think that the Gowie Group would be wondering to themselves who this Randy fellow is if there was no Randy involved in your company? You're sending all these text messages referencing a Randy. Why didn't the Gowie Group ever ask who's this Randy person that we're dealing with if it was an autocorrect?
The Gowie Group has, in our entire relation from we started communicating in August of 2022, right up until just this past Friday with the Gowie Group. They were not involved with any communication or linkage to Randy Boissonault.
And yet it was their understanding that this Randy Boissonault was a public official. Is this Randy, this other Randy that you're referencing, the person you won't name, are they a public official?
They are not, no.
Okay. Now, you've already admitted to this committee, to the country, that you lied to Global News when you told them that there was a Randy who was the head of logistics. And you expect this committee to believe that you had 8 autocorrects that went uncorrected? Why should we believe you now?
I'm a private citizen. I have nothing to hide or protect. I consider Randy Boissonault a friend, a colleague of mine that I had met a handful of times. We've never hung out publicly. If Randy Boissonault was involved, I would tell you. He has not been involved since September.
And yet we've been here for 3 months. You could have put this to rest, as my colleague said, quite easily 3 months ago and told us it was an autocorrect. This turmoil that you speak of, that you have gone through, that you do not want to put this unnamed individual through, is entirely a creation of your obfuscation of the facts, of your hiding the identity of this person. If you had said the name of this person a couple of months ago, there would have been no turmoil. So why did you hide this? You said on the phone when you got the call from Global News saying, who's the other Randy? You panicked. What would you have had to panic about if you had nothing to hide? You just said you had nothing to hide. You would tell us. Why didn't you tell Global News then the truth? What did you have to hide? Why did you panic?
Mr. Chairman, it wasn't about panicking about Global News. I had been told and contacted by Global News previously that Global News was working on a story in relation to ongoing litigation with Global Health Imports, that the linkage that between Minister Boissonault, that he was still listed as a partner within the Alberta filings, that it had not been removed, but it was removed from the federal filings. And based on the litigation that was going on with the Gowie Group, on our advice of counsel, we were instructed not to speak to them.
You panicked, but you could have just easily given the media an easy answer. It's not Randy Boissonault. It's not anyone named Randy. In fact, it's this other person. But you led us on this merry chase for 3 months, not merry for yourself, unfortunately, but you're the cause of your own misfortune here, sir. With that, I will give my last minute to Mr. Brock. Thank you.
145, Mr. Brock.
Mr. Anderson, you are a self-admitted liar. You lack any credibility whatsoever. It really begs the question, how much did Minister Boissonault pay you for your silence?
Mr. Chairman,
How much did he pay you?
I have not had no communication with Minister Boissonault.
You've only had one other partner in your entire operation with GHI and GHS. You've confirmed that is Randy Boissonault. The word partner and all of these email exchanges was never auto-corrected, was it? Was it?
There was no email communication.
I'm talking text messages. The word partner in text messages was never auto-corrected, was it?
Larry
It was
Brock
not
puts up his
referring to
finger,
Randy Boissonault.
You've
talks
had
down to
unusual
this
contract wins. You've
piece
had
of
a
shit.
half a dozen lawsuits, nearly $8 million in court-ordered debts, civil allegations of fraud, a fire 16 days after at
There's
a
a reason
warehouse
we
by
love
3
Larry Brock,
arsonists.
guys.
Yesterday, we learned you got into business with a Dominican drug dealer. Nobody believes you. No one at this committee believes you. Canadians don't believe you. Fess up. The gig is up. The only other Randy that was auto-corrected, according to you, 9 times was, in fact, Minister Randy Boissonault. Admit it.
Mr. Chairman, it was not Randy Boissonault.
Who was it?
As I have said at my opening statement, I am happy to provide the individual's name in question.
Not good enough. Gowie's understanding, according
Thank you.
to their
Thank you, Mr. Brock.
communications with
Mr.
you.
Nakvi, Mr. Brock, time's up. Mr. Nakvi for 5. Go ahead. And then I'm going to have 2 and 2 left, and then we'll call it a day.
Thank you very much, Chair. Appreciate the time. So there's a lot of different facts that's going around, and I think it's creating some confusion. So I just want to make sure that put on the record again, I think it's clear that Minister Boissonault has provided his text messages to this committee, and they showed no phone calls, no text messages, no WhatsApp messages to Mr. Anderson, and that's before this committee. I also understand that when it comes to GHI, reading the media reports, that the minister has unconditionally surrendered for cancellation his shares in the business. In other words, he's not sold them. There was no monetary gain from the disposal of his shares in the company, and that's been reported in the media as well. And I think it's really important that we have that clarified. I will go to Mr. Anderson, and sir, I think I agree with some of my colleagues' assertion that you're creating a little bit more confusion than necessary in terms of answering the questions. You have testified again and again that the Randy mentioned in the text messages in question is not Randy Boissonault. That relationship ended in September of 2021. The question that is, then who are you talking about?
I've said over and over, it is not Randy Boisennault. It is actually a female that worked in our organization and was heavily involved in managing day-to-day businesses. She is going through her own ordeals, and she has asked us not to reveal it based on the assertions of what she has seen Shauna go through, as well as myself, which is why I've said that I would be happy to give that information in camera, knowing that that person is not going to go through the same thing that we've all endured.
Okay. So you are willing to share that information. You're trying to protect, for personal reasons, an individual who you now is saying is a female. So thank you for sharing that information. I think in an answer to my colleague, Mr. Baines, you have agreed to provide that information in writing. Would you confirm that you will provide that information, the name of that individual, in writing to this committee?
I will provide the information if it's in camera, yes, for sure.
You earlier agreed to providing that information in writing. Are you agreeing to providing that information, the name of that person, in writing to this committee?
I'm not sure if I would.
You're not sure. So the only way you will provide this information is in camera. That's what you suggested.
That's correct.
Because I think that's what's creating so much.
I can talk to the person.
It will provide definitely clarity.
100%.
Right? That your business relationship, ended with Randy Boisennault in September of 2021, and the Randy that you claim is an autocorrect is actually some other individual, and that name, in order to protect that individual, you are not able to provide right now.
Correct.
And I just want to get this again one more time, that you have had no business or personal relationship with Mr. Boisennault since September 2021, just before he was elected.
That's correct. None.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got time for 2 and 2. I haven't got anybody on the, Mr. Brock, am I going to you? Okay. Then I'm going to need to know who I'm going to, Mr. Nakvi, after that for 2 minutes.
Mr. Anderson, it's time to stop playing games, and it's time for your come to Jesus moment. And to be honest, it was very difficult for you to admit that you lied to Global News. You panicked. Don't know why you would panic at that earliest opportunity, other than to suggest you were protecting your friend, Randy Boisennault, Minister Randy Boisennault. At all material times, pursuant to emails and other documentation reviewed by Global News that you lied to, it was always Gowie's understanding that when you referenced Randy, that it was in reference to Minister Boisennault. You had told Gowie on a number of occasions that Randy Boisennault was a partner in GHI and a public official. This was confirmed by Gowie to Global News. Now, clearly, you're not going to say that they are lying, because this is information that Gowie received from you. So the only one that's lying right now is you. And I'm trying to understand why you insist on continuing to lie to protect Minister Boisennault, other than some perhaps financial arrangement between the two of you. That $500,000 that you pocketed, you had no intention of delivering the goods. You gave back, what, $10,000 of that? You've never paid it back, have you? That $500,000. Answer the question. Did you pay it back?
You're mistaken when you say.
Did you pay it back?
You're
Yes or
mistaken
no?
when you say it's not a yes or no answer.
Okay, then I'll move on. How much of that $500,000 went to Randy Boisennault?
Zero.
Zero.
Yes.
So the autocorrect, whose name were you trying to say that either your Apple device or your Samsung device was changing to Randy? Who were you trying to say? That was a partner.
You were referring to an individual that worked in our office?
No, sir. No. You referenced a partner.
Okay.
You've identified already that you only had one partner in your lifetime with GHI. That is Boissonnault. Who were you trying to say? Who was the other partner named Randy?
Quickly, Mr. Anderson, if you can.
It was not Randy Boissonnault.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brock. I got 2 more minutes. I think I'm going to Mr. Nakvi. Am I?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, Chair, I'm just going to say to you, I think the next part of the committee, we're going in camera anyways. Why don't we just go in camera and just hear the name?
So I'm going to need a motion to do that, Mr. Nakvi. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett, on your point of order.
Which will stop Mr. Nakvi's time and gives him a moment there for his motion
His
also.
time's been stopped, yeah.
But I before the committee, if the committee does elect to go in camera, are you able to provide the committee with an update on whether or not the previous information requested from the witness has been provided to the committee with respect to his phone records? Has he provided those?
I can inform the committee that that information has not been provided up to this point. And there has in fact been multiple requests, Mr. Barrett, for Mr. Anderson to provide that information by the clerk. On a point of order, Mr. Well, Mr. Nakvi has the floor, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Brock. So, Barrett, are you done with your point of order? Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Nakvi.
Mr. Chair, I move that we move in camera and have Mr. Anderson share the name with the committee.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Nakvi. It's duly moved to move in camera to have Mr. Anderson provide the name of the Randy. Do I have consensus on that? We do not have consensus to move in camera. So I am going to call the vote. Go ahead. Just let me clarify that, okay? Just going to ask Mr. Nakvi, say your motion one more time for me, please.
I just simply move that we move in camera and have Mr. Anderson share the name.
Okay. That's not a dilatory motion. It's a debatable because you're making a specific request to have Mr. Anderson provide the name. If it was simply to move in camera, then that would be a motion that would be non-debatable. So we do have debate. I'm going to open it up to Mr. Barrett. Go ahead.
Well, Chair, the reason that I asked, and I'm keenly interested to get the name of this other Randy. The testimony from the witness is not credible, but he said that he'll offer. Mr. Anderson has said that he'll offer the information in camera. He had a June deadline to provide the text, instant messaging, and phone call logs from the dates outlined by the committee, and said he would only do so if the he missed the deadline, and then said he would only do so if a committee agreed to protection of personal information, which the chair provided that assurance. And he knew he was coming today, and he didn't provide it. That's operating in bad faith. So we have answers that are just not credible, and I challenge anyone around the table to say that they do believe that his responses with respect to who the other Randy is or what was in those text messages was an autocorrect. That's absurd. His answers aren't credible. He has not been a good faith actor in terms of providing information that was requested by this committee or meeting his obligations when he did say that he would provide them. And so we're left to really have to weigh what the value is of closing a public meeting, because I know that we have a motion that we would like to move with respect to the testimony that we've heard today. That opportunity will be lost should we move in camera. Now, if the decision of the committee is to simply move in camera, to hear the response from Mr. Anderson, which frankly, Chair, he could write the name on a piece of paper, hand it to the clerk could confirm that she's received the name and that it'll be shared with members confidentially. Well, that would negate the need for us to move in camera. But I'm not comfortable with us shutting down a public hearing where you have a witness who has refused to answer questions, which is a contempt of this committee. He has refused to answer. That is not a privilege that he has to refuse to answer, and so we can't support moving in camera. But I would just say, quite simply, the witness could write the individual's name, the supposed individual, and provide it to the clerk. And the clerk could walk over there, pick it up. It requires no translation, and it could be treated confidentially and circulated to members with an understanding that it is confidential. There's no other information that's been proposed by Mr. Nakvi to solicit from the witness in camera, and then that would allow us to move a motion that's germane to the proceedings today, because this is absolutely unacceptable, the way the witness has conducted himself, and Canadians deserve answers, and that's why the committee chose to meet today to get answers.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, Mr. Barrett. I do have a speaker's list on the motion.
Negate the need for us to move in camera, but I'm not comfortable with us shutting down a public hearing where you have a witness who has refused to answer questions, which is a contempt of this committee. He has refused to answer. That is not a privilege that he has to refuse to answer, and so we can't support moving in camera. But I would just say, quite simply, the witness could write the individual's name, the supposed individual, and provide it to the clerk. And the clerk could walk over there, pick it up. It requires no translation, and it could be treated confidentially and circulated to members with an understanding that it is confidential. There's no other information that's been proposed by Mr. Nakvi to solicit from the witness in camera, and then that would allow us to move a motion that's germane to the proceedings today, because this is absolutely unacceptable, the way the witness has conducted himself, and Canadians deserve answers, and that's why the committee chose to meet today to get answers.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, Mr. Barrett. I do have a speaker's list on the motion by Mr. Nakvi to move in camera so that Mr. Anderson can provide the name. And next on the list, I have Mr. Brock.
Yes,
Mr. Brock.
I don't want to
Go ahead.
belabor the point. Thank you, Chair. I don't want to belabor the point. I concur wholly with the commentary from my colleague, Mr. Barrett. But the danger that I see, and this is my opinion only, the danger I see with disclosing the identity of this mysterious Randy in camera is that it denies the ability of Canadians who have been dealing with this ethical issue, this potential breach, this potential act of criminality from Minister Randy Boissonnault for the better part of 2 months. And given that this particular witness had every opportunity to give us that information, not only today, but a month and a half prior, pursuant to a ruling of this particular committee, concerns me. And it concerns, in my view, it concerns Canadians who are watching this and want to know, finally, who the Randy is that was referenced in these very damning text messages. Their interest is even more piqued, I would suggest, because we have Mr. Anderson now as a self-admitted liar. It really goes full circle to my request that I did incorrectly, and I apologize to the committee, should have brought the motion simply as a motion and not of a point of order, because there is merit, absolute merit, and it is not a signal at all as to the veracity or ethical position taken by witnesses, but it is a standard practice that has been adopted in numerous committees where you have very, very important issues of ethical issues to be debated and discussed. This is a commonplace issue that is happening across numerous committees. I dare say there is probably some reference in our Green Book to the ability to ask for this. And I find it ironic that my Liberal colleague, Mr. Nakvi, a former Attorney General of Ontario, would take the position that we should just presume that witnesses who testify at committee are presumed to tell the truth without that ambit of scrutiny, the honest oath given on a Bible or some other religious instrument, or an affirmation to tell the truth. It binds the conscience of individuals to give us the straight facts without holding anything back, without embellishing. And in this particular case, he admits that he lies. In the former environment that Mr. Nakvi and I participated in, it happens every day in thousands of hearings in Ontario. It does not presume a lack of credibility with any witness. It's just a requirement that binds the conscience. And I think Canadians, given all of these circumstances, and now hearing that this witness is adamant that there is so much secrecy surrounding this particular surname of another Randy, if it is even Randy, because we don't even know if the first name of this individual is Randy. Is it spelt? I heard the evidence that it's perhaps a female. So was it an autocorrect? Randy spelled with a Y versus Randy spelled with an I? Who knows? Or maybe a completely different surname altogether. These are questions that not only are parliamentarians grappling with, but the nation is grappling with, and the nation deserves to know the identity of this other person today. Full stop.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brock. Just before I go to Mr. Lloyd, who's next, I am going to ask the witnesses to remain in place until the committee disposes of this motion, and I have Mr. Lloyd on the list. Go ahead, Mr. Lloyd.
I have nothing further to say. Thank you.
Okay. So, the motion presented by Mr. Nakvi is that the committee move in camera to have Mr. Anderson reveal who the other Randy is. Do we have consensus on that? No. We do not have consensus. I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll then on the motion as presented. Madam Clerk.
Motion to go in camera. Mr. Baines.
Yes.
Mr. Nagvi.
Yes.
Mr. Fisher.
Wait.
Ms. Gainey.
Wait.
Ms. Sidu.
Yes.
Mr. Barrett.
No.
Mr. Brock.
No.
Mr. Lloyd. Monsieur Villemur.
No.
Mr. Green.
No.
Mr. Chair, yeas 5, oui 5, nays 5, no 5.
Okay, my vote is no, Madam Clerk.
So yeas 5 and nays 6.
Okay, so the motion as presented by Mr. Nakvi has failed. Mr. Brock, you have the floor.
Prepared to move a motion, Mr. Chair. I understand it has been delivered to Madam Clerk in both official languages. I wish to read it out into the record at this time. That the Chair prepare a report to the House outlining the questions that Stephen Anderson refused to answer, including the identity of Randy that is referenced in the global news reporting and text messages, and the committee call Minister Boissonnault to testify for 2 hours within 21 days of this motion being adopted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brock. The motion has been moved. Just give me a sec, Mr. Green. I want to make sure that the clerk, are you in receipt of the motion, Madam Clerk? It's been distributed?
Yep.
Has it been distributed in both official languages?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brock, you're on the motion. Do you have any other things to say before I go to Mr. Green? On the motion?
No, I have nothing further to say on the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Green, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move an amendment
Okay.
that the committee commence the study at the resumption of the regular sitting of the House of Commons.
Okay.
I don't believe, I'll speak to it for a moment, sir.
Just give me a second here. I want to make sure that the clerk has the amendment. So I haven't seen the actual motion yet. I know it's been sent, but I haven't had time to view it. So basically what you're looking to do is to replace within 21 days of this motion being adopted, if I'm to understand Mr. Brock correctly, to the that the study will commence on the resumption of Parliament?
Yes.
Okay.
So where it says the last line, it says testify for 2 hours. I'm fine with that. But we'll strike out within 21 days of this motion being adopted, and we'll replace it at the resuming of the sitting of the House of Commons.
The resumption of Parliament?
Correct.
Okay, which is September 16th. Okay?
And just to speak to it.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know there's lots of people watching with interest who have all types of theories about how these committee dynamics go, some grounded through their experience in watching procedures, others completely disconnected from reality in terms of how they view these things to go. And I've said this at other committees, I view the time in my constituency as incredibly valuable to hear from Canadians, to reconnect with the people of Hamilton Centre, to help with casework, to help with my office. And quite frankly, like this sordid a tale that we've kind of watched unfold over the last 3 months is an important issue for Canadians. I think anybody watching this committee would agree the positions in the line of question that I took was to get to the truth, was to fully understand what's at hand here, and I support a further investigation. However, in the terms of urgent and importance, I don't think that this is urgent, that it needs to be dealt with within 21 days, given the fact that, like many members of the House, we have very committed schedules within our communities. And, I take exception, Mr. Chair, to the way in which, or maybe not exception, maybe I find it amazing, the way in which some of my colleagues define work. Like, I would put to you that this is my job. This is a parliamentary job. We do it. I supported this meeting today because I was very keen to hear testimony from Mr. Anderson and Ms. Poon kind of on their schedule. But our work is back in the constituencies, and our work does involve hearing from residents, having those meetings, and being there. We sit a very extended schedule in our regular hours, and I think that this would be better suited for when we resume for those reasons. So this is not a cover-up. This is not whatever. But the point I was trying to make in previous committees, Mr. Chair, is that committees are at the direction of the members, right? Which is why I appreciate the Standing Order 106, which requires members to find another partner, another party to support what they want to do, absent of which, in a minority in particular, we shouldn't just be setting a schedule without full participation of the committee. So I say that to say the 21 days is not necessary for me. Given the information that's come out over the last week, would be very keenly interested to see what comes out over the next 3 weeks given the revelations that's happened here at committee, which I think would give us a better line of questioning to the minister and allow us to more substantively kind of engage with what's before us today. So before anybody wants to, get all riled up with these kind of pseudo fake rage machine click farms, the degenerate emails that you get from people threatening you for treason and everything else, like just touch grass, people. Touch grass, realize that we're here, we're sent to do a job, we're going to do the job, we're going to do it on our terms, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Green. J'ai deux députés sur...
I have three MPs on the list. First, we're going to go to Mr. Villemure, and then we'll go to Mr. Lloyd and Mr. Fisher. Mr. Villemure, you have the floor on the amendment.
And for us to wait until the 16th of September, 2 months from now, to get the answers to these questions, I think will undermine the credibility of our government, and it will undermine the credibility of this cabinet minister, who I'm sure, if he truly is innocent, would like the truth to get out as quickly as possible. And so it would be my hope that committee members would support our original motion by voting against this amendment so that we can get this meeting within the next 21 days so we can deal with the very important questions that have been raised at this committee today and truly get to the bottom of this very suspicious affair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. I'm going to go now to Mr. Fisher on the amendment. Mr. Fisher, Mr. Naqvi, and Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just speak shortly to the amendment. I was going to speak to the main motion, but I will speak to the amendment. I agree with Mr. Green that this isn't something that has to happen within 21 days. But what I do find just a little bit ironic was in the original motion, the main question was to get the answer to what we just tried to go in camera to get the answer. So it just kind of shows that some members aren't necessarily interested in knowing what the name is. They want to know the name and be able to share the name and use the clips. Of course, in camera, you can't use the clips, so that's not going to be the result that they'd maybe hope to get. But on the amendment, I would say that I think Mr. Green is right. I will go to other speakers, and I will speak probably on the main motion after we get off the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Naqvi, on the amendment, please.
Yes, Chair, I was going to ask if you could suspend the meeting for a moment just to contemplate on this motion. I guess the main motion on amendment, I do agree with Mr. Green's assertion. There's a lot of work that needs to be done during the constituency, the weeks we've got in our constituency. I'm subbing in this meeting, but it's taken me now at least 2 hours away from my constituent meetings that I had to reschedule. This is an important and sacred time for all of us to be able to work with our constituents. So, if it will be better that this committee continue its work when the House is back.
Okay. I'm not going to suspend on that, Mr. Naqvi. I think the motion is fairly clear. I think the amendment is fairly clear. I think. Well, you're on the amendment, Mr. Green. So I'm not going to suspend the meeting. We're going to deal with the amendment first, and then we'll go to the main motion. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank
Green.
you. Yeah, back to the process. The process as it stands, particularly given the refusal to answer direct questions. For those of you who follow, you'll know that it is often the case that the NDP consistently demands for documents, demands for evidence, and is supportive of having witnesses provide testimony. Although we're not judicial in nature or even quasi-judicial, I think it's important that we recognize the powers that Parliament does have. Having said that, as stated, if there were questions related to the refusal, they couldn't be dealt with procedurally until the House rises anyways. Like, that's just a fact. So, I'm of the mind that we use that timeline that gives us the parliamentary processes and procedures when we are sitting again, as it relates to the Speaker, and as we were to potentially report back to the House, in keeping with the work that we're doing, rather than get ahead of it. So that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Naqvi, I got you back on the list here. Go ahead on the amendment, please.
Thank you very much. Chair, the reason I was asking for a suspension is that I want to move a slightly varied motion, make an amendment to the motion, which I think there will be room for understanding between the members, but we will need that time during that suspension period.
Okay, so
I think this which will allow for the committee to actually fulfill its purpose, and I can read that
But
that
just
draft
so I'm
motion.
clear, are you moving an amendment to the amendment, or are you moving an amendment to the main motion?
Amendment to the main motion.
Okay, so why don't we dispose of the amendment first? Then you can have the floor, and then you can move your amendment on the motion if it's amended or not. Okay, so I don't see any other discussion. Mr. Fisher, I see your hand now. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, and it's an interesting meeting. Usually we have most of our members are all in person, and of course today we have more virtually. I would request that, Mr. Chair, you very, very often agree to suspend when discussion can happen. So I would ask again if you would honor Mr. Nakvi's request for a short suspension so we can have a quick chat about this and see if we can get to a place where the committee's happy.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, I've already said I'm going to deal with the amendment first. Okay, so Mr. Nakvi has indicated that he's going to move an amendment on the main motion, so I can determine that after I hear the amendment. So I'm going to ask the committee, and I need some frankness on this. My understanding is that Mr. Anderson has a flight that he needs to catch, and Ms. Poon is also busy. I've asked them to stay. Is there any need for these witnesses to remain at this point, understanding that there is logistical? No? I'm seeing no. No. Mr. Nakvi? Monsieur Villemure? No? Okay, merci. Ms. Poon and Mr. Anderson, I'm going to dismiss you as witnesses. I appreciate your time in front of the committee today. Safe travels. Thank you for being here. Okay, let's continue. I've got no further discussion on the amendment. The amendment has been moved by Mr. Green. I think it's fairly clear on what the amendment is. I'm going to, do we have consensus on the amendment? We don't. We do not. Okay, so I'm going to ask the clerk on the amendment to take the vote. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
On the amendment from Mr. Green, Mr. Baines,
Yes.
Mr. Nakvi,
Yes.
Mr. Fisher, Mr. Green.
Yes.
So, yeas pour 7-7, nays contre 3-3.
Okay, so the amendment passes. We're now on the main motion as amended. I'm going to go to Mr. Nakvi. I know you wanted to speak on it, Mr. Fisher, but I think Mr. Nakvi wants to speak first. Go ahead, Mr. Nakvi.
Thank you very much, Chair. I sincerely appreciate this. So I'll read what I want to capture, and this is where we want a suspension, so I can work with colleagues to see if we can turn into an amendment or a standalone motion, if agreed by the members, and I'll read what I have in mind, that the committee order Mr. Stephen Anderson the production.
All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up right there because the rest of the committee meeting is terribly frustrating to watch. I don't personally want to watch it again because I know what happens. They just try to delay the meeting, install it, and put it, and they get their vote, and that sucks. However, it's been a wonderful day of getting to hang out with some new people to the channel, some old friends. It is a lot of fun here. And we are going to get some answers. I believe this week, the Ethics Committee and OGO committees are both going to be investigating the Randy Boissonnault scam, like Randy number 2 or whatever. How in a tiny company like that wouldn't you know the name of the other Randy? It's so ridiculous. Anyhow. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Aaron. This is Canadian Looney, and things in Canada these days are pretty out of control, pretty weird, pretty nuts. I still have some hope for our country, but man, things are not looking good. Like, if you pay attention to international politics, even the things that are going on south of the border, they just shot a bullet at Donald Trump's head and missed. And no one even talks about that. So things in the world are pretty out there. I love Canada. I love Canadians. I don't like what has been happening to our country over the last number of years. And while I've been trying to figure out how we got in this hole, I started making this channel. And I'm just showing other Canadians. I don't have a lot of commentary that I do here. You can make up your own mind. Watch this shit, make up your own mind. You're a smart Canadian. You don't need me to tell you what to think about this stuff. I know that. But maybe we're going to show this stuff to some Canadians that maybe wouldn't have seen it. And that is the idea, because I don't believe that anybody that is a true Canadian patriot could watch this stuff and not see that something is terribly askew. We're getting hosed, and it's not by mistake. There's an agenda, and anyhow, again, it's not about the commentary. It's mostly about the storytelling. Show the people what you see, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to head out for now, guys. This is it. We are going to wrap up right here.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Maybe there's a little grass growing right along here. Some happy little things.
I love you. You love me. We all own our own bodies, so marry who you want and do whatever drugs you choose. And when it's time, you can die with dignity by determining your own end-of-life plan.
Hi, Maria!
Hi, Officer Winkles!
How you doing today?
I don't have to answer that question.
That is correct!
I'm recording you!
Am I being detained?
Nope!
Which I can legally do because I'm in a public place!
Come back if you have a warrant!
Alrighty!
Know your rights!
Yay!
Okay, Gumshoes, Carmen Sandiego is in a country where socialism failed. That narrows it down to Venezuela, Cuba, the former Soviet Union, Moldova, Laos, Vietnam, Albania, Angola.
So we did some digging into your past.
Oh, the suspense is killing me!
But we still haven't solved the case, Holmes. Why is marijuana a Schedule 1 drug?
Elementary, my dear Watson. Nixon and racism.
What?
You okay?
I don't know.
Hey man, it's alright. It's alright. We've got qualified immunity. Qualified immunity, it's not for you, it's just for me. I shot your dog.
I shot your wife.
I get to go on with my life.
My favorite part is where the character says, I do not want green eggs and ham. And then Sam I Am says, that's fine, you don't have to eat them. That's your right. The end. It's a short book.
Here we see one of the last taxicab monopolies struggling for life. Competitors have entered their ecosystem.
Do you know what eminent domain abuse is? It's when the government decides the neighborhood of make-believe is better used by a Taiwanese LCD manufacturer.
Today we have a real senator. Hello, Senator.
How are you doing?
What is your favorite color?
I would have to say blue.
Me too. Tell me, why did you sell all your stock right before the crash?
I mean, it's literally just the tragedy of the commons, but they made it cute.
And that sound means we're in international waters. I'm gonna marry a robot and sell my kidney on eBay.
My dearest Rowena, today the district attorney filed criminal charges against a two-door sedan.
Carmen Sandiego is hiding in a country that contains an American military base. Is she in Australia, Bahrain, Belgium, Brazil, Bulgaria, the British Indian Ocean Territory, Cuba, Germany, Djibouti?
menace. Circle, square, rectangle, war factory.
All right, Jack, where is your gay wedding cake?
I refuse to bake a gay wedding cake, and you can't force me to. It's my right.
That is your right, but it is my right to kick you off of this show. Please leave.
Yep.
You homophobic bearded meat goblin.
I just want enough to warm it up some. I don't want to set it on fire. It's very easy to set it on fire.
Well, today on This Old House, we're at the city zoning office because they think our new porch is 2 inches too close to the sidewalk, which is f***ing bullshit because their sidewalk is too far away from the street, which they'd know about if they'd read any of the emails I'd sent them over the past 18 months. So join us as we waste our whole f***ing day on the shit.
The premiere of Thomas the High-Speed Rail has been delayed again. And at the 10 Bitcoin level, you receive a handsome tote bag.
Quack! Good one!
Quiet!
Very good!
Queen!
What else starts with the letter Q?
Space lasers.
Oh!
John Podesta and Hillary Clinton had an email exchange about hot dogs.
Where do we get these puppets?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and you have a right to defend your house with firearms. With firearms.